Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. This is our hymn, the quintessential Unitarian Universalist hymn. Why do we love it so? And why does it speak to us so deeply as a group and as individuals? What is the so-called spirit of life? And why do we ask for its presence with us and within us 3 times in this very short hymn? I believe it has everything to do with connection to each other, to nature, to our world, but more than that, to something universal, something bigger than ourselves that we might call spirit of life or many other names. The name you choose will be the one that has particular resonance for you. Is yours creator, the divine mother or father, the higher power, the giver of life, the universe, the sacred, the infinite, or last but not least, God? You're probably going to find me using the word God going forward just for the sake of simplicity. As children, many of us learned about what I call the vertical God. God was up in heaven, up there somewhere, apart from us, looking down, watching us. If you were good, he let you into heaven eventually. If you were bad, you went to hell, down below where the fires burned. The point of life was to strive for heaven, where you would exist contentedly with God forever, which frankly never sounded all that appealing to me. We were also taught as children that we were made in the image and likeness of God. When you are young, it's easy to take that literally. As a child, I pictured the 3-part God I was taught about to be mostly human. God the Father, part of that Trinity, sat on a throne surrounded by clouds and looked stern, kind of like my dad. I pictured God's son, Jesus, as a big brother or favorite uncle type human. God the Holy Spirit was, well, who knew? Hopefully not a ghost. As I grew older and learned more, I began to see things quite differently. But sometimes I'm not sure I have completely discarded my original paradigm. When we hear or read the word God, used as a Judeo-Christian reference, it can be easy to once again envision our childhood God. The God of my adulthood is actually much different. He, she, or it is not a vertical God, but a horizontal God, a presence that abides in everything, something I am happy to call the Spirit of Life or any of the other names I have mentioned. That horizontalness connects me with plants, animals, people, the earth, the universe, and with all other minds, hearts, and souls. This horizontal God is our collective sovereignty, the foundation of all life, the basis and breath of all being. For me, the essence of God and ourselves is one essence. However we personally define God or explain reality, most of us have had an evanescent experience when oneness or wholeness defines our existence at that particular moment. It's not just a feel-good buzz, it's larger and deeper. We have the instinctive certainty that we are part of something bigger that flows through all, something seamless, full, pure. This feeling of being part of the entire does not come to us while we are in a busy office, in a long jostling line at the grocery store, or watching television. It comes at times when our mind is quieter. I most often experience this passing but transcendent feeling when I listen to classical music. Something about certain music lets me rise above my often mundane, busy, and distracted existence to commune with that which is clear, certain, whole, and perfect. Where and when is your mystical place and time? The moment where your life takes on a deeper and sublime meaning, and something you might call the spirit of life runs through it. Does that feeling happen to you on a mountaintop in the Adirondacks? Or in your garden among the flowers? Or on a beach as you vibrate with the rhythms of the ocean? Or when you gaze into the face of your new child or grandchild? Or when you read a poem that touches you deeply enough to make you weep? Most of us would not find it a stretch to define these special moments of feeling embedded in the larger whole and at peace with it as a spiritual moment. Could we, I have wondered, have any control over this rich feeling of oneness? More than just being available to it, could we summon it at will? And if so, what would being able to do so look like in our lives? Mystics and contemplatives of many religions often offer answers about reaching out to ask for the divine in a spiritual moment that we might be quick to discard, thinking that somehow we are not inclined to be as religious as they seem to be, or that, as realists and everyday folks, we should not entertain such impractical or even pretentious notions. Depending on our religious background, words like contemplative or mystic may conjure up visions of monks and monasteries, or perhaps people without their feet firmly planted on the ground. Let's agree to suspend these images for the next few minutes. Let's see where the terms contemplatives and mystics can lead you and me, average Unitarian Universalists, who sometimes hesitate in the face of the language of religion. There are mystics and contemplatives in all major religions and philosophies: Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, and more. The commonality among the mystics is the experiential side of the spiritual life. Meister Eckhart, a 13th century mystic, is supposed to have said, "The theologians of the world may quarrel, but the mystics of the world speak the same language." A mystic's concept of spirituality is not about doing good deeds in order to attain points for the plus side of God's ledger, or for the reward of heaven. Rather, it is about being. The stirrings in the depth of their being are what give rise to their relationship with the divine. Although many mystics associate themselves with religions that have strict doctrines and creeds, in my mind, the UU's lack of doctrine or creed gives us a kinship with mystics on a singular level. Like the mystics and contemplatives, we use our very personal experiences of the spirit of life as basis for our moral beliefs and behaviors, and as a guide for our relationships with others. Our immersion in the spirit of life is how we, as individuals, personally discern right and wrong on a scale both large and small. Ralph Waldo Emerson, a transcendentalist, one of the influential individuals in the history of Unitarian Universalism, said this: Nothing is at last sacred but the integrity of your own mind." I would enlarge upon that to include your own heart and soul. As our hymn says, the spirit of life is what sings in our hearts and causes all the stirrings of compassion. And when it moves in the hand, it helps us give life the shape of justice. Thomas Merton, a Roman Catholic monk, mystic, and writer, died in 1968, meaning that most of his writings predate inclusive language. He believed in the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit as equals, and that is prominent in his writing. Be that as it may, he had something to offer us about our inner spiritual life and our relationship to the whole of life. I especially like Merton because the imagery he uses to describe his experiences in relationship with the spirit of life is so intertwined with the natural world. Using Merton's Book of Hours for daily spiritual practice is an evocative and enriching experience. Merton associates prayer, meditation, and contemplation with a deepening of one's inner experience of life and an expansion of the capacity to understand and serve others. Here's one of the things Merton wrote about the contemplative life. When I speak of the contemplative life, I do not mean the institutional cloistered life, the organized life of prayer. I am talking about a special dimension of inner discipline and experience, a certain integrity and fullness of personal development, which are not compatible with purely external, alienated, busy existence. This does not mean that they are incompatible with action, with creative work, with dedicated love. On the contrary, all these things go together. He goes on to say, a certain depth of disciplined experience is a necessary ground for fruitful action. Without a more profound human understanding derived from the exploration of the inner ground of human existence, love will tend to be superficial and deceptive. Do you notice he used the words inner ground twice? What is this ground he wishes us to explore? As he explains it, and as I interpret it, the inner ground of human existence is whatever we personally choose to call the spirit of life. Is this spirit then the roots that hold us close and the wings that set us free? Let's hear from a layperson, Joanna Macy, one of the 1996 translators of Rainer Maria Rilke's Book of Hours. Joanna Macy had a Christian upbringing, but she states that the Christian God with whom she had been intoxicated in her teenage years did not survive the theological studies she later undertook to serve him. And she did say him. Eventually, she settled into the study and practice of Eastern religions. She says that while thumbing through a copy of Rilke's Book of Hours in a bookstore, Rilke's words struck a chord with her. She was reminded that if her spiritual appetite was greater than the tedious, cramped theorizing of the theologians, so might be God. Gradually, through meditation and silence, she apprehended a presence that seemed, as she says, to be the thrumming relationality of all things. Reading Rumi, the 13th century poet and mystic, one never doubts that his relationship with the divine was firmly seated in experience, not doctrine. He uses the analogy of the irresistible feelings of desire between lovers as a means to express his feelings about his immersion in the everywhere God. Another famous modern mystic once wrote and sang these words, "I'm being followed by a moon shadow." Later in the song he sings, "Did it take long to find me? I asked the faithful light." These are words, of course, of Cat Stevens, who later withdrew from public life for a time and converted to Islam. People have often identified with the spiritual implications of the magnetic words of Moonshadow. When I first heard them in my mid-20s, they resonated with me and have haunted me ever since. That moonshadow still drifts over my life and causes me to search for the truth about why I am here, why you are here, and why this life, this world. When I would like to turn away from the strong call for a mystical relationship with the divine because it is inconvenient or scary, or it might set me apart from others who do not understand or believe, I find I cannot, because the faithful light, Cat Stevens names, which I see as the sacred infinite, the great mystery, is never separate from me or absent in my life. It is the ground of my being, and I must respond. So, the mystics challenge us to identify the spirit of life by turning inward. Some of us need stillness, silence, or quiet creative pursuits. We find this in prayer, meditation, journaling, art, and music. For others, the path is more physical and encompasses yoga, dance, tai chi, hiking, and walking. For still others, the path inward leads strongly back outward, inspiring us to social activism, vigils and marches, work and volunteering. There is no one size that fits all, but there is one basis on which all of us build a strong relationship with the spirit of life. Here is Ralph Waldo Emerson again. None of us will ever accomplish anything excellent or commanding except when he listens to the whisper which is heard by him alone. Emerson elaborates on that whisper by saying, "Let us be silent that we may know the whisper of God." I will end by reading a short poem by still another mystic. Her name is Mary Oliver. We know Mary Oliver as a person who is able to capture moments in time in lines of verse that resonate strongly with us. What did Mary Oliver seek and often find as she moved about on the earth in her quiet and solitary way, spending time out of doors, communing with nature? Perhaps it was the spirit of life in our Unitarian Universalist hymn. This is her poem titled Today. Today, I'm flying low, and I'm not saying a word. I'm letting all the voodoos of ambition sleep. The world goes on as it must, the bees in the garden rumbling a little, the fish leaping, the gnats getting eaten, and so forth. But I'm taking the day off, quiet as a feather. I hardly move, though I'm really, I'm traveling a terrific distance. Stillness, one of the doors into the temple.